So let's get started with part 5, acknowledging and citing AI. If you are using GenAI in an assignment or any kind of academic work, you should acknowledge and document how you have used it. So you should keep track of which tools and prompts you have used, what output you received, and how you have actually used it in your work. Some tools that you use will actually allow you to export a history of what you have done, so what the prompts are and what the output was. Some tools you would have to take screenshots of what you've done, but it's really good practice to document how you've used AI, what prompts you used, what output it generated, and how you actually used it in your final piece of work. Because ultimately, in most of the assignments where you are allowed to use AI, will expect you to speak to your work in some way. So you should be prepared to be able to speak to your work and how you have used AI. Ultimately, as I said, with a human in the loop, you are ultimately responsible and accountable for what you create with AI. And so you should document how you have used it and in order to be able to speak to how you've used it and what is your work, what is AI's work, where have you collaborated with AI to actually create something. So one example of how you might acknowledge AI, so this one's a fairly simple example, but you simply say, I acknowledge the use of GenAI, of whatever the GenAI system is, to then how you have used it. And these prompts include a list of the prompts. That's a fairly basic, simple way of acknowledging the use of AI, but ultimately it really depends on what are the requirements for the particular assignment or the particular work that you're doing. Some particular work that you do will define what counts as acknowledgement and what counts as evidence for how you have used AI. So it's really important just to, before using it in academic work, particularly in an assignment at university, is to check what is that documentation you should be doing and what is that acknowledgement that you should be providing. You'll notice that throughout this entire presentation, every time I have used an AI-generated image, I've actually put in an acknowledgement in there. I've said what tool I've used, I've said what date that I generated that output, and I've provided the exact prompt that I used to document where I got that image from and what tool I was using. Now, how do you actually cite AI? This is slightly challenging to actually provide advice for because it does change and different styles have different expectations. But simply put, each referencing style has its own way of citing GenAI output. So if you actually use GenAI output directly in an assignment, in order to abide by the expectations of academic integrity principles, you need to cite and acknowledge your use of AI. Each referencing style has its own way of actually formatting that. So for example, this is how APA 7th style says that GenAI should be referenced. You say the creator of the tool, the year that you created that content, what the tool actually is, what version of that tool was used, if that's applicable, large language model, for example, if you've used ChatGPT, and then a link to that tool. But each style will have its own slightly different way of doing that, how to approach that. And APA 7th actually also defines and recommends going into more detail to acknowledge how you've used AI in your methods section or providing an appendix, for example, that again lists how you've used AI, what the prompts are, what the output was, etc. And so since each referencing style has its own way of citing GenAI outputs, you should really look up how to do so using the referencing style that you are expected to use in your course or assignment. And similarly, you should follow the advice and requirements that your course coordinator, for example, provides for how to acknowledge and document your use of AI before using it. Some places you can go to get some advice on this is the University Library's Guide on Artificial Intelligence, which we have a whole section about citing and acknowledging and referencing AI, which we will update over time. And so you can access that on the link here, or my colleague Rani has just posted that into the chat, or you can scan the QR code there. And again, you can look at these slides afterwards. And you can also look at the referencing support webpage that the library has, which provides broader advice for referencing in general, including referencing AI output. And again, the link is on the slide here. It will be in the chat as well, and you can also scan that QR code.